Rise and grind, folks. What we have here is another video. Complaint was that there was no heat and there was a funny smell coming out the vents. And whenever you get that scenario, you definitely want to check your blow motor for proper operation. And upon arrival, I got it disconnected here, but first things first, you always want to verify that you have proper voltage to your motor. And this is a newer motor. But yeah, we had 120 volts to the motor. But upon arrival, I didn't get this on video. This motor was making a humming sound. And what most guys would do is replace the capacitor. And that's not a bad place to start, but the capacitor here wasn't the issue. Even with a new cap, it did the same thing. So what I wound up doing was I pulled the motor out, and the bracket here, this is an old belly band style bracket. The bracket was broken here. And as you can see, let me get this in the light here. Now, never say never. I never seen this break like this. But as you can see, by this thing snapping in half, this bracket essentially mounts the motor to the housing. By this bracket breaking, that motor was unbalanced, and what it did was it just dropped right inside the housing and it jammed up the motor. Now, what's very, very shocking is that the squirrel cage is still in good condition. I was telling the customer that usually whenever your motor sags or if it's unbalanced, that squirrel cage will get chewed up. So luckily that squirrel cage is okay. What we have here is a new bracket. These are our go-to brackets for blow motors. Personally, there's only one or two options, or it's really three. The real older furnaces, they have the cradle mount. This is a belly band. And reason being, this wraps around the middle of the motor. The older units have the cradle mount. It's like two parts. One part fits on top, one part fits on the bottom. And like you'll see those on real older air handlers and older furnaces. I don't like using those. Belly bands are okay, but the only issue with these belly bands is sometimes depends on the position that you're in when you do the motor. You gotta first sit the band on, and the legs come separately, so you gotta jostle around with them. I don't like using that belly band. The newer brackets is all one piece, so you just slide this on around the motor, tighten up the screws, and you're good to go. But I just think over time, this thing just snapped and it ended up dropping the motor. My biggest thing was I thought the motor, since it was jammed up, from it being the bracket being snapped, I thought the motor jammed up and burned itself out. But believe it or not, no two motors fell the same way. Sometimes the squirrel cage can be unwarped and it can mess up the squirrel cage. Sometimes the motor can burn out from a dirty filter, but in this situation, the bracket was just broke. So I'm gonna put the new bracket on the motor and I'll show you guys what's going on next. All right, guys, we got a new motor in. This thing is pretty loud, but as you can see, brand new motor in, so everything is rocking and rolling here. Alright guys, I'm back at the truck. It was pretty noisy down there, but we got the new motor in, and this is the old bracket. Another thing, if I didn't already state this earlier, whenever you make a motor repair, whether it be a squirrel cage, whether it be replacing the motor itself or the bracket, in this case, it was a cracked motor bracket, as you can see. But whenever you make a motor related repair, you always want to replace the capacitor. This is a good preventative thing to do, because this capacitor, indeed, we tested this thing and it's a 15 microfarad capacitor. When you test this thing, it should be very, very close to 15. I think plus or minus 5% is like 14.95. This thing was at 13. So if we would have just did just the immediate repair and we didn't look at the big picture, if we would have put a new bracket in and kept this old capacitor in there, a weak capacitor probably could have took that motor out. So it's never a bad idea. Just always keep, capacitors on your truck. Make sure, like you said, you pop in a new cap anytime you do anything related to the motor. So there you guys have it. Peace out. I'll see you on the next one.